Welcome to the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast. I'm Allie Rose, certified clinical hypnotherapist and subconscious success coach. I help my clients stop self-sabotage and feel safe to create more wealth, worth, and wellness from within. If you find yourself stuck repeating the same unhelpful patterns in your life, health, business, or relationships, even after all the mindset work, this podcast is for you. Each week, you'll hear deep dives into the hidden beliefs shaping your life and live hypno-coaching sessions where someone shifts a block in real time. Because willpower isn't the problem, your subconscious story is. And when you shift it at the root, everything else begins to change. So let's dive in. Hello, and I want to welcome you to the very first episode of Shift Your Story, Change Your Life. I'm Allie Rose, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to finally be launching this podcast. This has been on my heart for years, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted this to be a space where we go beyond just simple mindset shifts and into identity shifts, because I believe that real change doesn't happen on the surface level. It happens at the subconscious level. And so many people feel stuck in the same cycles over and over again. And it's not because they're not trying hard enough. It's because they're running old subconscious programming that they didn't even realize is there. And I know this firsthand because I've lived it. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I also knew that I didn't want to do this podcast alone. I wanted to have deep, real conversations with someone who just gets it. And so the first person who came to my mind was my dear friend, Sophia. And Sophia is an incredible author, podcast host of the Writing Black Joy podcast, and one of my favorite terms, a story listener. She just has this rare ability to hear not just what people say, but what they actually mean. And I knew that she would be the perfect person to help pull out the big questions and make these conversations even richer. So, Sophia, welcome to the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast.
Yay. Thanks so much for having me, Allie. And can I just say, I love the name. So I'm just so happy to be here. And it'll probably come out as we chat why I love the name so much. So I can't wait to do this with you. This is great. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Like I said, I couldn't think of anyone else that I would rather have on this journey with me.
I love this. And, you and I have talked off and on about you starting a podcast for a while. So I'm really glad you've finally taken the plunge. And I'm just curious because I know that, you could have started any type of podcast. We both have podcasts that we love. But what made you decide to dive into shifting subconscious stories? Like, what is it about that topic that you think, is going to really be life-changing here?
Yeah, so you're right. This has been brewing for a while and many years at this point. And I think I just kept thinking, I'll start when things settle down. Life happens and when I have more time or when it feels right. But I just started thinking that sometimes there's just not a perfect time to start something. And really, my journey with hypnotherapy and working specifically with the subconscious mind is what really was the catalyst for this. So I run into people all the time who are they're not understanding why nothing's changing, even though they're doing all the right things. And I think what I realized was that I don't want to just help people one-on-one. I want to have these conversations on a bigger scale so that more people can start seeing what's really holding them back. So that's along with deciding that I wanted to do this with you. That's what finally made me say, okay, it's time.
I love that. And I know hypnotherapy was a big part of your journey. So we're going to dive into that shortly. Tell me a bit, though, about the importance of tapping into the subconscious.
Yeah, I mean,
Why is that so important?
yeah, I mean, so you know my background, but just for those people who don't, I spent 10 years as a traditionally trained talk therapist. And I
Mm.
realized, after my own experience with therapy, that simply talking about our problems over and over again, it doesn't fully help us resolve our issues because our subconscious stories are it's actually what's running the show. And they're not something that we can get to simply by talking about them. We all have these deeply rooted stories about who we are, what's possible for us, what we deserve. And most of the time, we didn't even choose those stories. They were programmed
Mm.
into us by childhood experiences, past failures, things people told us, cultural expectations. I could go on and on.
Mhm.
And so, unless we actively rewrite those stories at a subconscious level, we keep reliving them. So, that's that's why I wanted to focus on the subconscious stories and how to shift them at a subconscious level.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I've been thinking about that a bit recently, probably because you've been talking about this podcast. It's also been on my mind. And so I'm really looking forward to diving into some of these conversations. Now, I know that you personally have had your own journey with rewriting some of those stories from your past, quite a few of them recently, I feel like. So some of the sort of the main points of those stories that where you feel that you've been able to rewrite on a deep level and really achieve change.
Yeah, so I think the first time that I really had to deeply think about rewriting my story was in 2017. I was going through a divorce. I was mostly financially dependent on my ex. I felt completely stuck, like my life was happening to me. I was feeling like I didn't have control. And so I knew something had to change. So I started experimenting with writing affirmations daily, which led into me writing a book of
Mm.
affirmations. But the interesting thing was that I didn't really fully believe those affirmations yet, but they were like anchors. And then once I was in that practice, I started writing gratitude in the future, pairing them with my affirmations, really journaling as if I was already living the life that I wanted. And then I took it to the next level and I was listening to those affirmations and journaling on repeat while I was walking, while I was driving, while I was in the shower, while I was cooking dinner. And what I was doing was I was actually feeling them, not just writing words, but fully feeling them. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was rewiring my subconscious. So little by little, my reality started shifting, my confidence, my financial situation, and just my overall energy shifted during that time, which allowed me to get through that painful period of my life.
Okay, that's amazing. And I always remember the first time you told me about recording those affirmations and listening to them, and something about that shifting from just writing them and reading them, but shifting almost into like having them go deeper into that subconscious level. So that's impressive that um, you didn't realize that was what was happening. So I'm curious then, because I know you have had other experiences rewriting your stories. Tell us a bit about how you discovered your sort of current mode of working with those subconscious stories.
Yeah. So, like I said, in 2017, shifting things through the divorce. But then in 2021,
Mhm.
everything kind of collapsed all over again. It wasn't because of COVID. It was actually because I got the rug pulled out from under me in what I thought was going to be a very promising career opportunity. And I fell into a deep depression. And this time, the affirmations, the journaling, the surface level mindset work, none of it was working. And that's really when I turned to hypnotherapy. I had 3 RTT hypnotherapy sessions and it really changed everything. It felt like for the first time, I wasn't just putting new affirmations on top of old wounds. I was actually going straight to the root of my subconscious blocks and it literally lifted something from me. I felt
Mm.
different. my partner looked at me and said, I don't know what has happened to you, but you are not the same. And so then once I saw how powerful RTT hypnotherapy was, I knew that I had to learn it for myself so that I could use it with my own clients. So that's when I decided to train in it.
Okay, that's amazing. What I find interesting about that is because I know when you talked about the 2017 experience coming out of the marriage, and you talked about recording those affirmations and listening to them, and it it was a shift, but it obviously wasn't as big a shift as when you had RTT. So I'm sure we're going to get to this at some point as we go through the podcast. But what do you think the difference is between those two things? The difference between kind of listening to the affirmations versus the RTT? Like, is it a deeper level? Like, I'm curious what the differences are there.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a firm believer in, I think that affirmations and general affirmations and things like that, it can take you so far. But I think that, I mean, I I hope it's okay to say this. I mean, you've had an RTT session.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so you've had an RTT session. I mean, so when we go into the RTT session, it's really going to the deep roots of things and sometimes things that you don't even know are there. And so it's kind of like, I love garden metaphors. And for me, it's like, it's preparing the soil so that those affirmations can actually take root rather
Mm,
than just like, maybe like growing a little bit and then dying. Like that's a little bit how I
hmm
feel like the 2017, it's like they grew a little bit and then like the soil wasn't right, it wasn't
hmm
prepared to receive them, and then they died, and so I had to go really deep in 2021.
Yeah. And I like that because I think it kind of explains when people do feel as if they have these changes through things. It doesn't mean that that's not a real change, but it may not be as deep a change that will kind of take you through any situation. So I love that. And I'm curious for a listener out there who feels that way, who feels that they're stuck because maybe they have tried affirmations and they thought they had that transformation, but then it didn't feel like it sort of took root. What are they going to expect from the podcast? What can they expect to learn from this sort of talking about diving deeper?
Yeah, I mean, so this is obviously I was a traditionally trained talk therapist for 10 years. I wrote affirmations, I wrote a book of affirmations. I am an avid journaler, which is maybe something at some point that you and I will
Yeah.
get into.
I know we will. I can't wait.
Um, and this is not to downplay any of those methods, any of those practices, because I think that they're really important. This is really just to help people realize, help them see, right? Because the first step in any change is seeing those subconscious patterns that are keeping them stuck. And so the way that I would love to structure this is that every other week, together, you and I will be doing deep dives into topics like self sabotage or perfectionism, people pleasing, and some of the biggest blocks that I see holding people back really around, I would say, like the big three: their health, their wealth, and their relationships. And
Mhm.
then on the other weeks, listeners will get to really witness and hear real transformation where I will be doing live hypno coaching sessions where we will dive deep into someone's subconscious story and shift it in real time. So I think that
Mm,
that's really important because I think we can learn so much by listening to someone else's process.
yeah. And, you and I talk about this all the time because I think there's something really powerful about listening to someone else going through that, being coached, and kind of that's almost a way to start to see your own patterns in a way, isn't it? Like your walls are down, you're not feeling like somebody's trying to tell me I'm doing something, but you kind of start to almost see them from a distance. And to me, that's a great way of starting to think about your own patterns, and then have a way to set goals that you might then want to take into your own hypnotherapy session if that's what you decide to do. So I think these are going to be so good, these conversations, and also the live coaching as well. So I can't wait to listen, and yeah, I can't wait to get started with the conversations. What are we doing next week? I'm ready already. Come, let's go.
Yeah. So I just thought as we dive into these first couple episodes, I figured what we could do is do a little bit of demystifying hypnosis and hypnotherapy because I think that a lot of people have some preconceived notions about what hypnotherapy is, what it feels like. There's swinging watches, mind control, like that I'm going to
Mm,
somehow
cluck
help
like a chicken. I
cluck like a
always
chick.
listen. There's this TV show that I watch, and I always remember the one of the characters supposedly hypnotized the other one, who's like every time the phone rang, then he was gonna cluck like a chicken, and it's like,
Right.
oh, is that real? Is that really a thing? So yeah, I have questions about that. That should be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to demystify this process. I want people to understand that this experience is something that they're already experiencing multiple times a day without even
Mm.
realizing it. So in the next episode, we're going to bust the biggest myths, break it down, how, you can, and how using hypnosis and hypnotherapy can really help you to rewire your subconscious mind for real, lasting, and deep change. So, I just want to ask something really quickly. You said this in the intro. You said, I love the name of the podcast. And I'm so curious to hear you why you love the name.
Well, it's so interesting. I've recently been thinking a lot about stories, and I I mean, I'll say it here, it may not be related, but obviously, as you mentioned, I have had RTC in the last couple of years. But I also, a lot of things have changed for me in the last couple of years. I've moved to a new city, a new town. I'm doing a different type of work. And something about that change has allowed me to see things that like stories, patterns in my life that I feel like I couldn't see before. I
Mm.
don't know why. We may get into that in a future episode, but I actually started writing recently about some of those stories and like just the realizations I've had, and how the shifts that have taken place because it's just been so interesting to me. Some of them I didn't even realize I had the story, until I had a conversation with something about something unrelated. And then I was like, suddenly I feel like I'm a teenager again and I'm back in this time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that was it. That was what happened then. So I've really been thinking about the stories. But the other thing too, you mentioned I'm a writer. I've been thinking about language in and of itself and how we think about those words and those definitions that we have for ourselves and how that also holds us back. So it's just, it went, even though obviously we talked about it before, I think when we spoke about it before, you hadn't quite settled on a name, or if we had, you hadn't told me. And so I was just like, I love this because I really do think that shifting those stories can change your life. And yeah, so I got really excited when I saw that.
Wonderful. Well, as you can hear, this is why I chose Sophia to have these conversations with me because she thinks really deeply about these things. She's intentional, she's thoughtful. And so I'm just so excited that you said yes to joining me on this journey. And I'm excited to see how all of this comes together. That's all for today, my friends. We're sending you so much love and gratitude. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Shift Your Story, Change Your Life podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to send me a message on social media. I'm at the Allie Rose on both Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to be coached on a future episode or explore what it would look like to work with me one-on-one, head over to shiftyourstorypodcast.com. And if you never want to miss an episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review. It helps more people find this work. Until next time, keep shifting, keep growing, and most importantly, I want you to remember that your story isn't set in stone. You always have the power to shift it.